Okay, now we're gonna find out if this board that I use that recipe for is gonna turn into this board and see if we can get similar results. Let's party.
Welcome to my channel.
So I told you guys that I would be doing a video about the clay board recipe. I had a fiasco of involving AI, believe it or not. I couldn't find a recipe online and I wasn't sure like what was legit, especially from a couple of them that I saw that were years ago. And I was like, well, I just don't know. And there was like different kinds, and I know you can use clay board for different things. And so none of these really pertain to watercolor in particular. So I was like, well, this is the clay board that I got that really inspired the consistency of the watercolor and just how everything blooms and looks. I really want my clay board to look and behave like this. This goals. Awesome. So when I decided to involve AI, which you probably saw in my last video, I was doing this one. The recipe was so wrong. So wrong. I obviously did not know what I was doing or what the elements really were. I had AI tell me several times, okay, what does this one do? What does that one do? And it was so convincing, guys. If you use AI, it's gonna gas you up and you're gonna feel like a genius while you're using it. And it could be total bullshit. So that's what happened here. I was basically painting on plastic, which I'm going to share the recipe with you. But this one, it called for a cup of kaolin clay. Now, the recipe I'm going to show you is not that amount at all. It is so much less. Gosh, I can't even believe it literally. So what it did, two recipes that I found online, and then it combined them. Yes, I had it cited sources. Yes, that's how I found out, because it was like, here's what I got, and I'll put them together. That's not how it works, AI. That's not how it works. I found a recipe and it seems really legit, especially since it is kind of an offshoot from my artist that's inspired me to do this, which is Allie Kavanaugh. Definitely check her out. She is incredibly talented and has mastered clayboard with watercolor. It's impressive. Here are the materials. First, kaolin clay, white powder. This is the main ingredient here, but they're all actually going to be rather even, but this is what makes a clay board, this right here. Then you're also going to need calcium carbonate, some basic gesso, and my weird favorite, rabbit skin glue. Ugh. And I'll explain more into detail on what each of these do. Even then, I'm still learning. So yeah, we're gonna do this together. So the cool thing about clay with the clay board is that this is what creates your absorbency and that soft kind of texture feel, that's slightly velvety, slightly soft. This is what is the magic. Your calcium carbonate or marble dust is the stabilizer. This can be really important to not skip out on, even though you don't really need a lot. This adds density and body to your recipe. It's going to prevent cracking, and it's going to make your sanding between layers or just your final sanding really smooth. Now, your rabbit skin glue is going to be your traditional binder. It's going to create a hardness to your surface, and it allows your surface to also have that easy lift on your colors that people love oh so much, especially with clayboard and watercolor. Now, your gesso is going to be important to have because this is kind of what creates your leveling and makes the consistency of your recipe smooth. It kind of is giving it the gel, if you will. It also prevents powdering from your clay and your carbonate or marble dust. I've already put together my recipe and made one of my boards up and allowed it to cure for a few days. This is the right size for experimentation, not the big one. So yes, start small. I got a couple of these from Amazon online, and it's just like a standard board. Nothing fancy, but it's going to be great for trying out this recipe and tweaking it as I go. I even wrote down the recipe. Ho ho ho. Okay, let me read it to you and then I'll put it up here as well. So for this recipe that I found online, which is not my own, it is 2 tablespoons of the clay, 1 tablespoon of calcium carbonate powder, 1 tablespoon of the high glued. Now, the high glued has a little bit of a process, which I'll get to in a second, and then 1 tablespoon of the gesso. With the rabbit skin glue, you do 1 tablespoon with a quarter cup of water, and you put those together in a small jar and you allow that to sit overnight because you're going to want the granules to dissipate. They're going to totally disappear and become smooth. And then by the time that happens, you can warm it to, I think, between 104 degrees Fahrenheit to 140 degrees. So not boiling, not simmering, but it is going to be warm. And you're going to want it to be completely smooth and watery by the time it gets to that temperature. And that's when you're going to put it into your whole mix of your dry recipe. Then you're going to add in your gesso. And while it's still warm, it's good to go ahead and start applying that onto your boards and then use a hairdryer for your boards. That way you can move them very quickly and you're able to keep your recipe warm, keep yourself moving, and good flow, right? If you can't get to your boards and you just made the recipe, you can seal it and put it in your fridge and it should last. And then when you're ready, just get it back out and warm it to the same as you did your rabbit skin glue and keep going that way. You just have to make sure that you're constantly mixing and keeping your recipe warm while you're applying it. Yeah, it's pretty simple actually. Okay, now we're going to find out if this board that I use that recipe for is going to turn into this board and see if we can get similar results. Let's party. Also, if you watched my last video about the gallery submission, you can see I got it framed and I'm testing it out. It's pretty cool, right? It looks pretty nice. I wanted to show this recipe, what it looks like when it's cooled. This has been in the fridge for a few days now, and it's almost like a pudding. So it kind of got this gelatin style. It's a little jiggly, it's dense, and I'm just gonna put it in this jar because it has a lid. This one I lost the lid, but really your recipe only the volume is only about half a cup, so it doesn't take a lot, but this would cover a good amount of boards. And after it's been refrigerated, all you would do is you'd put this in a saucepan with water and put it in there, lid off, heat it up, keep an eye on it, make sure it's not boiling or simmering, just a steady warm heat, and then this would become a liquid again. I got this big vanilla folder of hands, all the hands that I've drawn on tracing paper, and I put in this folder. And just to kind of keep things moving with my experiment, I chose my Italian hand. That is not an Italian accent, in case you're wondering. And I'm going to just put that on my board, and we're going to use it as my experiment. Oh, you can see how this graphite did. At least it erases nicely. So you can kind of see how when I paint and put something down, it just like brings up everything underneath and creates a new clean slate. So layering is really challenging. I don't quite remember it being this way with the other board with DaVinci. I remember it being watery, but like it didn't lift. I don't think it lifted quite like this. I'm noticing that the water lays on it a little bit longer than the DaVinci board. It's a bit smoother, so maybe next time I can omit the sanding. Hopefully that could help with the grab. And then I think I actually need to tweak my recipe to create a little bit more absorbency. Hopefully that will also help with the layering. So When I have it down, that means I can layer on top and it still shows and it's not gonna lift as easily, and things stay put, and I'm able to kind of put some colors continuously on top. So let's see what I can do with another addition to this recipe. I'm heating up my clay in my jar right now, making that back into a liquid, and then I'm gonna tweak it by adding just a smidge more clay. I'm just gonna take a tablespoon of this clay and add it to my mixture. I hope this works. All right, gonna make sure that that's nice stirred. I have my other clay board, and this one's got a little bit of a more papery, kind of like chalky feel, kind of like you would brush your hand up against a wall that wasn't painted. Let's pick a new hand. So something that I am noticing is that the surface, once it's wet and the watercolor's on there, it's kind of getting this like gummy feel. I think that's because of the extra clay. I guess maybe because it's like still wet. And once again, I didn't allow this 24 hours to cure. So that's also something to consider. I think for my next round after this, I'm going to try to up the calcium carbonate or the marble dust and see if that can create more density, but a little bit less of that gummy feel. I'm going to see what that gets. But first, let's continue. I think if I was to try this completely again from scratch, the recipe I mean, I'd probably see what emitting the rabbit skin glue would be like. I almost wonder if that's what's giving that really hard surface. You might be wondering why I'm deciding to make my own clayboard recipe rather than just using DaVinci. And the reason is because it's way more cost effective to make your own materials, but also it allows you more freedom in your creativity. Like if I wanted to create a different kind of texture or tweak the ingredient because I'm going after a certain style, I have the ability to do that because I got my own recipe. This does create some really beautiful blooms, and this is a way better than the other board, but it's just quite not what I'm looking for. So I think I'm going to end my experiment here and try adding that marble dust into my next round and seeing where that gets me. And then if that still doesn't go for what I'm going for, I might try the recipe over without the rabbit skin glue and go from there. I honestly don't know how many times I can get away with heating up and refrigerating this mixture with the rabbit skin glue because it's an unstable ingredient. So I think I'll know it by if it's like separating. Gosh, this truly is an experiment I know nothing about. So unfortunately, if it goes wrong, well, I wouldn't really know why. It's kind of ridiculous, honestly. So I'll probably do a little bit more searching on the webs because AI cannot be trusted with this recipe. Yeah, I'll keep y'all posted. I'm gonna add the marble dust to this, apply it to a board, allow it at least like 24 hours or overnight to cure, and then go from there. Just remember, this is kind of what I'm going for. The texture is very papery and the blooming is fantastic. The lift is just excellent. There's so much I love about this surface, but I am wanting to try to replicate it through my own recipe, and that way I can have more control, save some money, and do it on panel boards that are more to my liking. So I shall see you guys tomorrow to test these boards out and Cross your fingers that we're getting closer. This is the clay board recipe that has the extra tablespoon of clay and also an extra teaspoon of the calcium carbonate powder. I also only painted 3 layers rather than 5, just because the material, the recipe was getting a bit thick and I was adding water to it, but you know, with how much clay I was adding and whatnot, I was like, we'll try 3 layers. So far, this is behaving rather nicely. I don't have any qualms yet, so let's just keep going and see what we end up with. Okay, so far this one's actually really nice. It's not lifting as immediate, which is great, so I can layer. It's building pretty nicely. I would be willing to tweak this one even further just to see what we can get with as we're building up the marble dust or calcium carbonate powder with the clay. And maybe it does need 5 layers. That's also something to consider. This recipe is without the rabbit skin glue. Instead, it ups the gesso by a tablespoon. I actually like how this is pooling the water, like even when I'm going around, it's not creating an obvious edge. It's taking a while to soak into the surface so I can kind of move it around and play with it more. That's really cool. However, I believe it is going to take a little bit longer to dry, so we're going to find out how the second layer does. Okay, so it does bleed a bit more as it keeps drying, so that's not great. So creating obvious boundaries is a bit harder with the gesso. The gesso kind of makes it squishy. Like the water, it just kind of comes back into itself and it doesn't spread as easily and it takes longer to absorb. It's not lifting as easily as the other boards, so that's kind of nice. It's got a little bit more grip, so it's able to layer. But yeah, I think once the color's dry, it just really smooths it out and dulls it. This could be really beautiful if you're going for more of a dreamy kind of glow. This would be a style I would keep in the back of my mind if I wanted something that's like really smooth, really soft. I'm certainly liking this one the best. This one is the closest thing I've gotten to the Da Vinci board that's inspiring this process. Okay, let's recap. So this one is the original recipe with the rabbit skin glue, 2 tablespoons of the clay, and 1 tablespoon of the calcium carbonate powder or marble dust. That one, probably least favorite. This one, we upped the clay by a tablespoon. So 3 tablespoons of the clay, everything else as is. Then we moved on to this one. That one is also 3 tablespoons of clay, but then we upped the calcium carbonate powder or marble dust by 1 teaspoon. This one is the favorite. And then this one is without the rabbit skin glue and ups the gesso by a tablespoon. So it's 2 tablespoons of clay, 1 tablespoon of the calcium carbonate powder, and 2 tablespoons of gesso. This one's really interesting and lends itself well to more dreamy, hazy styles. Very beautiful, but not what I'm going for. So with this one kind of being the winner and the focus, I'm going to continue my experimentation with the calcium carbonate powder and the clay powder ratio. All right, well, that is a wrap. I would say that experiment was pretty successful, even though we didn't quite land exactly in parallel with the Da Vinci Aqua board, but we got really close. So I'm going to keep tweaking this recipe. I'll keep y'all informed, but thanks for joining me on that. And we did learn a lot about these ingredients for sure. So stick around and you'll see probably more clay boards and paper watercolor paintings.
Thank you for watching.